singing to a single star.
Welcome to Seeking the Light of a Thousand Suns podcast, brought to you by Maya Skyryka and Gia. We are eclectic practitioners, and our podcasts are designed for listeners in any stage of their chosen magical path. Please join our Facebook or go to our webpage for podcast extras.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seeking the Light of a Thousand Suns, the podcast where we talk about everything spiritual, pagan, and witchcraft related. Today, we are talking about centering, grounding, and shielding, the fundamentals to any healthy spiritual and pagan practice. We have with us Maya and Gia, and of course, Lily with Lily of the Light. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And how are you guys doing today?
Doing fantastic. I'm doing some grounding right now.
Yeah, so I think that brings up a good point as we're transitioning into the beginning of this podcast. When is the best time to ground in general, and when do you find you need to ground most? Because that's different for everybody.
Let's start with what is grounding?
Okay.
So for me, grounding is being anchored to Mother Earth. This allows me to be sure of myself and to be one with Mother Earth, to really feel the influences, to be in the present moment. So not having anxiety about the future or depression about the past, being incredibly mindful. For me, that's a lot of what being grounded is. And then the practice of grounding, I have found it's a lot of visualization. So roots going down out of your feet into Mother Earth, or a cord from your soul center down into the earth, like a way to connect you that resonates with you.
I love that. I use grounding too for almost every mundane thing that I come about. For example, when I'm on a plane, I love the takeoff and landings on a plane. And it's one of those things where I just open myself up and I feel all that rush and that anticipation, and you can feel that slight force push against you. But then when we're in the air, if I don't ground myself immediately, then I could end up getting motion sickness. So I use it to ground myself when I need to keep my head on straight, when I need to get myself back in check, when I'm in a room full of a lot of people, especially because I'm like an ultra introvert. And there's even times where if I'm outside talking to a neighbor, I have to ground myself just because I might not be prepared for that extra energy that's coming from them. And so you can use it for almost any time you need to.
I'm actually glad that you brought up the airplane, because I use it for that too, but I've also used it when I was able to do salmon fishing with my family. There was a time in my life where I was able to do that, and we would do it in Michigan. And when the waters were really choppy and the boat was really rocking, I would be grounded before the fishing trip. And while many people were leaning over the side, vomiting their guts out, I mean, I was disturbed, but I was not sick.
I love that. I've never heard of that before, like grounding to help with like motion sickness and stuff. I think that's really cool. Like, it's used differently for everybody, and no one knows everything. So it's awesome to listen to these podcasts and to learn those things. Like, I always ground. So I have chronic illnesses, so I always ground before doctor's appointments, because ask a lot of questions that you have to answer not only truthfully but articulately. And then
Mhm.
you may be getting stressful news. Like doctor's appointments aren't fun, for anyone, even if you're used to them. So that's a big one for me. Before arguments or like stressful meetings with people,
Or
I will
standing
do
up
it.
doing talks. Yep.
Yeah, just to be able, like anything that causes me more stress, I would ground beforehand. And then the other main time that I do it is before I do any kind of spiritual or divination work. Because let me tell you what, I have done tarot readings without grounding. They're crap. They're not, no, I do not recommend. That is,
Oh.
ground before you do your divination work 100% of the time. Never sit there and think, oh, I don't have to. I'm fine. You're not fine. Take a few deep
Mm-mm.
breaths, anchor yourself, and then ask a question about your own freaking future.
Especially important to ground when you're in group magical practices and if you're casting a magical circle. I don't think there's a lot of literature out there that really explains the importance of grounding when you create magical circle. Because when you create a magical circle, you're cutting between space and time.
Yes.
Mhm.
Being grounded keeps you from floating about. Um, it keeps you from being disoriented.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever cast circle and then bumped around knocking shit off the altars and can't remember or think of your words and have uncontrollable laughter or whatever, that's all not being grounded.
Mhm.
So here's a question. I have my own opinions about it, but here's a question for you two. So in doing group work and being grounded, let's say there's 4 people and 3 people are grounded and 1 person isn't. And that's just a random number that I thought of, the 4 people. Does that affect the efficacy, the energy, the
Mhm.
outcome of
Yeah.
the circle and the magic created?
It
I don't
depends. I think it can, but sometimes it's not by much and sometimes it could be by a lot.
What I've seen personally with my own eyes with group circles, I was in a training circle for a year and a day and then was initiated.
Mm-hmm.
And in the training circles and some of the rituals and stuff like that, it usually ended up being a rescue case because the person or persons that were not grounded, when you start raising group energy, it is very powerful as it raises and raises and raises for that cone of power.
Mm-hmm.
And so the ungrounded parties end up having some pretty significant side effects. Um, some have wandered off and disappeared. Some of them got in their cars, tried to drive home, and ended
Hmm.
up being lost driving for hours.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People will get really, really bad headaches. Um, if you're not grounded in a ritual like that, when you go home, you can't sleep. Your energy is soaring too high, and it makes you so that you can't sleep. There's a lot of different, as far as like affecting like the group energy, the group mind, and the group magic. I haven't seen personally that the ungrounded parties did anything but hurt themselves.
Yeah, I think it can be both, that it can cause dysfunction or misalignment in the group, but definitely in the individual. And I know that after doing ritual or intense spiritual work, um, that it's good to take a beat before you get in your car and drive. Like, I used to be a part of a yoga studio, and we weren't allowed to drive high, is what we called it.
Mhm.
So if we ever did spiritual work in the studio, which happened like often, a few times a month, you actually didn't leave right away. Once everything was finished and they rang the gong to end and everything like that, everyone was urged not to leave. And it was like the event was over, the ritual was over, but we all sat, like, people would drink tea, you'd sit and talk, you'd wait until you had like leveled out and grounded again so that you weren't driving what we called high, because we were at such a high vibration that, no, like, we were distracted by like being and existing in the universe and the messages that it's not safe to drive without being grounded before
Mhm.
those. So I appreciate that practice and having learned that at a young age.
I
I
will
love
say, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I love that they used a gong
Mm-hmm.
because that in itself is a start on grounding.
Yep. It was big too. It was not a little gong. I think it was 3 feet wide.
Holy
Wow.
crap.
Yeah, this was a big mama.
I love gongs.
This was a cherished possession of the owner. So yeah, I think that those are all really good times. And what we were talking about before we started recording was actually before, during, and after. Is there ever an inappropriate time to ground? And I believe that as long as you're not disrupting anyone else, like if your idea of grounding is humping someone's leg, then you have some issues that you may need to look at. But it's like you can ground anywhere, anytime, and it doesn't have to involve anybody else. You can take a few deep breaths and feel the energy in your feet. You can ground with sensation. There's many different methods for it. So like if you're in the middle of an argument and you're like, oh, I'm not grounded, ground in the middle. Have an awkward pause, take a few deep breaths, and you get grounded. So before, during, and after, I mean, there's no wrong time to be grounded.
I'm glad you brought that up too, because I'm very, very sensitive. And when we would have arguments at work, I was in a very toxic work environment, and there were arguments at work, and people were getting snaky, and all this kind of stuff going on, a lot of tension. And there's a really discreet way in a situation like that to ground without getting up if you have to do that. And that's while you're sitting in your chair, you can pick up and slap the bottom of your foot.
Yep.
Slap your foot, and then go to the other one, slap that foot, stomp them on the ground, like maybe something a little discreet, but is perfect for not being affected as much by all the chaos happening around.
Yep. If you're wearing shoes that aren't like super lace up or you have to like unzip, I'll slide out of my shoes and just like rub my feet on the floor. And that'll help a lot. Like the tapping, tap the ball of your foot or the heel on your foot on the ground. And like don't stomp it. If you want it to be discreet, don't start thinking you're at a metal concert and stomp your foot. But there are definitely subtle ways to do it. And there's subtle imagery. Like you can do imagery while you're holding a conversation with somebody. You can visualize the roots coming out of your feet and anchoring you and digging deep into the soil and nurturing you without breaking conversation if you want to.
And
I
so
love oh, I'm so sorry.
for people like me that do not have the ability to visualize, what I would do is I would usually have some type of stone to help as well, especially if there's a lot of distractions. If I can't sit and talk myself or hear or feel myself doing the grounding because of distractions, my favorite go-to was having a hematite at all times, hematite stone. Some
I
other
love
good
that.
ones. There's a whole bunch of other good ones. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to lie, I spent many, many years wearing a hematite ring. The only thing that sucks about wearing a hematite ring all the time is you just never know when it's going to explode off your finger.
Yes,
But they're not expensive. It's a really nice way to stay grounded all the time.
it is. Hematite was one of my first stones that I really fell in love with and resonated with. It's so multifaceted, and I think that brings us kind of into shielding. Like, so that's great for grounding and shielding. And I
Mhm.
think that like protection is part of the first things that you should learn in witchcraft, in spirituality, in paganism, in all the branches. Like protection is real. We are all souls having this experience and we cannot control everything around outside of us. So shielding should be something that we do on a regular basis. And I always view shielding as like a bubble around
Mhm.
us, right? But I mean, how, and whether it's visual or verbal or whatever the technique is, how do you guys feel about shielding?
I do it every day, every moment of every day. of my existence. And what I've learned is that when you do it enough, your brilliant body, mind, and spirit are able to make it almost as second nature as breathing. Because breathing, the heart pumping, our brain firing, all these things take energy, and so does shielding, right? But to not allow myself to constantly feel tired from always shielding, I've taken that journey to practice it and utilize it every day so that my body, my mind, and my spirit would grow accustomed to it, and it would become like breathing and using that amount of energy. And then as I take in things to fill my energy back up, I'm just naturally taking in now a little extra to keep up with the energy I spend with always shielding. I do the same for my son. I do the same for my home. There's always a shield around my car, my home. I've got a shield around my bank account. I mean, I love shielding, and I use it quite a bit.
I love that. Shield your bank account. I like that. Shield it from
Yes.
impulsivity. Booyah. I think, like, you're right. Practice makes progress, not perfection. So a lot of people, I've had a lot of clients through my business, Lily of the Light, that, well, I can't do it, or it's so hard. Of course it's hard. You've never done it before. You're not
Mhm.
used to doing it, and certainly not used to doing it with intention. And so the more you practice, the more second nature it'll become. And so, like, we've been practicing for a while in our individual lives, that it is second nature. And I think for me, it's everyone needs to find their technique. And for me, it's objects, specifically with shielding. I don't shield myself very often with my own energy, but as most of you know who have, like, seen my social media or seen me in person, I'm always wearing hats. My hats are blessed with the intention of shielding,
Oh, I
and
love
so
that.
that's my shield. Everything, like, my jewelry is set up to be my shield. So, like, I'm always wearing my shield because I'm not, for me, using my own energy to do it didn't feel natural, and it's not something that I could focus on because it's not my
Yes.
style. And so I found one, and it was like, oh yeah, wear hats, wear jewelry, absolutely. And now I do that with a lot of my clients, that they'll actually, like, mail me their earrings or their necklace, and I'll charge them and bless them and everything, and then send them home with them, and then they just wear them, like, all the time. They're like, yep, this is now my shield. And then I just have to teach them how to do the maintenance with it,
Yes.
cleanse it and recharge it, but the initial work is already done.
Well, and I
So
think
yeah.
the really cool thing about shielding, and not to make everybody spin out, and because here's the thing, there are so many different levels of shielding to be learned. For example, my home shielding, because I walk always between the light and the dark. I use high magic symbols on the shield that is around my home, um, versus the shield that's around me. I allow some things to be allowed in and block out other things. And these are more advanced practices, but here's the thing, when you're just starting out, um a good example is find that element that you resonate with. So mine is earth, and much in the same way of grounding, I imagine, I imagine roots coming up, gently wrapping like a snake around my ankles and moving their ways up to my calves. And then I pull energy up through the earth. And when I do, I try to pull it up through the core instead of directly from the plants around me, so not to injure the plants. And at the same time, I take my projecting hand, and at that time, I dump any energies I don't need back into the earth's core to try to keep it balanced, because I know it'll alter that energy and use it the way it needs to. And I pull that energy up from the earth, dump the toxic stuff I don't need. And when I have that earth energy in me, I use that like it's coming straight out of the top of my head, and it's creating this big, huge, like you said, Lily, a bubble around me. That way I'm not using my own energy, but I'm also not just taking from the earth and not giving back. So I mean that's something that I'll do just kind of as a general thing, because it's a little bit simpler. If it's a sound that you resonate with, like the bell, like you hear, I always love playing the bell, but and you can use that sound energy as well. So you can play that sound, bring it into your being, and allow that to fill you with energy that you can use to project your shield outward from you. So just a couple tricks.
It can be used with any of the senses. So as you were talking, I was like, yeah, so when I go to doctor's appointments, people look at me funny. I place my palm flat on a wall and I walk when I walk in,
Mm-hmm.
and I ground through the foundation of the building, because I mean that's solid. And we don't have
Yes.
earthquakes. That's solid. And
Yes.
so I do it through physical touch. You can do it through physical touch by touching a stone. Have a smell. Have a specific incense that you only burn when when you want to ground or shield or whatever. And then there's, like you said, sound. There are gongs, there are bells, there are specific tones. Heck, there are songs. And let me tell you what, as much as so many people are all light, love, and bullshit, it can be any song. If Baby
Mhm.
Got Back makes you grounded, do it up. If the thing that makes you feel safe and protected is She Thinks My Tractor's Sexy, rock it out, no shame. So do whatever, because everyone's like, oh no, it needs to be hard. No, it does not. It absolutely does not need to be that. Make it what works for you. However, if like that's what works for you, that very Enya music, that's awesome too. Like in a previous episode we discussed how I sing different songs to myself to change my energy, and one of them is a healthy song that just sounds like it belongs in a kids movie, and another one is literally like neurotic chanting of the word llama, and that keeps me focused for work. So it truly can be any noise, and there is no shame with any of it. You can eat things to become grounded. Like there's
Carrots.
yes, there's so many things that you can do. So really explore this part of you, like every aspect of your spirituality, of your paganism, of your journey. And
I've got
so
something for you, Lily. Are you
yeah,
ready?
yes.
Let's see if this'll work.
God, Becky,
Yes.
look at her butt. It is so big. She looks like one of those rap guys' girlfriends who understands those rap guys. They only talk to her.
I just
because
need
she
that.
looks like a total.
We're gonna. There we go.
I love it. That is awesome. And now I have to do the mandatory. We do not own the rights to that music. It was played in the background for entertainment. Please do not come
Sir
after us.
Mix-a-Lot.
Thank you. Baby Got Back.
Only go to Sir Mix-a-Lot's official YouTube and website.
Yes, yes. But I mean that goes to show, like, you started playing it and I started moving my head. I started moving. It definitely shifted my energy. And it can be that simple and that quick. while things are laborious when you first start because you're just starting and you're just learning, eventually you're going to hear that whip noise and just be like, and now I'm grounded. And it's going to be fabulous. So remember
Sorry.
that moving forward, as much as, some things may seem really difficult, the more you do it, the easier it gets with grounding and shielding. And with shielding, there are many different flavors of shields. So there is shielding for protection. There's shielding to mirror, so you mirror something back to somebody. I was recently on a TV show, filmed a TV show called The Blocks, and it's the biggest entrepreneur reality TV show in the country, where we compete to be the best entrepreneur of the season. And you want to know what shield I put up, ladies?
What?
Charm. I put up a charm shield every goddamn day of shooting. No shame. You use the gifts the goddess gave you. And it was fabulous. I did so many things differently in season 9 than in season 5. In season 5, I thought it was unethical to use any of my gifts or my paganism on set, so I didn't. And I did fine in the show and I loved it. It was amazing. Season 9, I went back and I was like, I am a psychic. I honor my divine being. I honor, the gods and goddesses who help me. And it went so much better. I was able to do literally 2 times as much work while still networking and taking care of other people and doing like readings and healings and astrology the whole time. So like once you find your groove and honor it, you're not going to be using your own energy to shield or ground. It'll just happen. So trust that. Trust that it'll happen. I have faith in you.
So I have a story about shielding.
Mm-hmm.
So I was at a Marilyn Manson concert in Minneapolis at the Myth. And when there's a lot of drinking and a lot of drugs and a lot of high people and stuff like that around you, and it's a standing room only concert. They do not there's not a lot of personal space.
Mm-hmm.
You got people bumping on you, you got them bouncing on your heels, they got you spilling beer all over you and everything else. And so I read somewhere about a porcupine shield.
Ooh, I want to hear this.
So I'm sitting there, right? And I'm like, gosh, this might be the perfect time to try this. And it was really, really neat because, I put a regular shield around me and then I threw a whole bunch of porcupine needles out. Boing! It did that. Boing! Quills just poof. And the next thing I know, there's 2 to 3 feet space opening up around me, and it just kind of kept growing.
Oh, I love that.
It was awesome. However, there was one person that it had the opposite effect on.
Oh.
So this one person kept getting closer and closer and closer and was actually leaning into it.
And
There's masochism.
So there was
BDSM action.
There was one person that enjoyed it on some level.
They were like,
but
give me some more of that.
For the most part, I had breathing and moving and dancing space without people puking on my shoes, spilling beer on me, bumping all into me with their sweaty selves or stepping on my feet or whatever the case may be. So it was very pleasant. I was a little disturbed that I was pleasuring somebody, but, I was happy with the rest.
Yes. I love it. Yes. No, I'm going to try that. I am so looking forward, and please tune in for future episodes because I will report back how that goes with that. So I'd never really used a charm shield before until season 9, and then I did, and I must say that I am a big fan of it. I can't wait to try the porcupine shield. I think protection shields are obviously the most versatile, the ones we use the most often. But what other shields are there besides the ones that we've mentioned? I'm trying to think. It's been a long day, listeners. I'm so sorry. I'm not my usual Zazzle self. I can't think of any.
So I've used a shield. I used a shield of invisibility on my car.
Oh, yes. Yep.
That was a big mistake. I wouldn't
Mhm.
recommend doing that. I can't remember the reason why I had chosen to do that at that time, but there was so many near major accidents from lane changes and people cutting you off or, trying to drive through you, basically. I would not recommend using a shield of invisibility around your vehicle. Now, if you're going somewhere and you want to kind of be a wallflower and you're not really somebody that is real chatty, doesn't want to be approached or whatever, that's good to do it around your persons, but I
Yes,
wouldn't.
shield responsibly.
Right.
People shield responsibly.
I shield invisibility when I go outside because I don't want to be bothered when I'm gardening.
That makes sense. I like that.
I'm a little antisocial, sorry.
So that you do you, boo. You do you. That
I'm
is
like,
not
leave me alone
everyone
when
can
I'm
be as loud as me.
I'm like, this is my meditation, introverted meditation space. And then someone will come over and start yapping with me, and I'm like, dang it.
Can't you see the shield of Nada? Yes, absolutely.
How
Oh
can
my
you still
gosh.
see me? No.
I love that Gia brought up something though, because I've only ever used them to protect my energy field on my aura. I have never
Mhm.
used them on objects, but now I'm going, huh, like you got strangers coming over to your house and you don't want them to see something? Boom, shield of invisibility,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know? Or, shield of hot lava, don't touch,
Yep.
Yep.
or, or whatever. Like I would have never thought to do it on objects. It's never crossed my mind.
Oh yeah, I objects inanimate, like invisible objects, like currency in banks, your computer and the internet. Um, there are so many things that you can shield, and you can help to. And actually, I was gonna bring this up, but I would say until you gain more experience with it, and only with the permission of the other person, you can help to not only shield someone else, but you can also help to ground them. And again, only with their consent. But it's kind of similar in the fashion that you would ground yourself. You're going to have to use the sense that is strongest for you. Mine is visualization. So when I've asked to help ground someone else, I've imagined roots coming out from the ground and gently anchoring them back, their feet back to the ground. So that's something else too. But again, make sure that you've gotten to a spot where you're really good at grounding yourself first.
Yes.
And
And
because
consent is
yes,
sexy.
consent is sexy. I like that.
So sexy. I think you bring up a good point. Like I have a few tiny humans in my life and
Mhm.
they don't know how yet. And so like
Yes.
I do the wards on their room, not the entire house, but their room at that house. I do the shielding on them. I help them with grounding, absolutely. And that's with their consent. They love it. They can tell when auntie's been involved. But then also like with my clients, if you schedule a session, we can absolutely do energy work to get you grounded and centered so that you can understand that feeling so that you can hopefully replicate it on your own with time. So if you're going, "Oh my god, I don't know what that feels like," schedule a session and you'll learn, like it'll be walked through.
Yes.
You'll get familiar with it. So you don't have to do this on your own. You really don't. It can be something where you are taught to do it if that is your style. If you need an hands-on example, absolutely have a hands-on example. I love that. So I have been thinking, and I feel so silly, but I've been thinking about centering, which is the other thing we're going to talk about today, this
Yes.
whole time. And it's because years and years and years ago, I went to some event and this amazing group of healers was there. And this is, they said, well, we have to get centered, but we have to like attune to each other. I don't know. I've probably told you guys this story. This is how much I love this story. I've probably told everyone on this planet. But so for them to get centered and to attune to each other's energy, they did the armadillo. And they would armadillo, like they would chant armadillo to, and it wasn't like armadillo, it was like armadillo, armadillo. And they kept doing that until they were all harmonized and in sync with each other and completely centered. And it was the coolest thing ever. And they explained how they came to armadillo. Like someone said it like as a joke, but then they all started doing it and it really felt right. So you can center to yourself and you can center with other people. You can attune to other people and center as a group. So there's two different ways. And for me, centering, again, present moment, but centering is also centering yourself in your soul to know what's in your highest and best without having to think about it. That it is just, it's there. It's right there in front of you. It's tangible. What do you think, Gia?
I love that. I'm still hearing armadillo in my head and I'm loving that. But yes,
Yep.
I would agree. Also, I mean, because here's the thing, with the lovely female changes, and sorry, everybody, TMI, but I'm perimenopausal. And they put you on, it makes you go through this crazy roller coaster of hormone fluctuations, which in some respects has caused me to have attention problems.
Yep.
And what I have found is using centering techniques allows for me to be able to just get through my mundane day.
Yes.
I have to do it more frequently. I have a fidget spinner, and it's one that lights up. And I have to take a moment out of my day and use my fidget spinner to help center me. There are so many different tools you can use to center yourself. And, even what Maya has taught me before, which is, imagining you like, in the same way as grounding, an anchor dropping out your butt, right?
Right there. Crap out the anchor.
Yeah.
It is fabulous.
Yes.
Everyone, you're
Yes.
welcome for the mental image, okay?
Yes,
Very
right?
welcome.
Like you're sitting at your desk chair, right? You're like, my attention is, I gotta reel her in,
Yep.
just imagining that anchor shooting straight out your behind and then bringing you back, and that center straight line just going all the way up through your body, out the top of your head, and just centering on the ceiling, raising your chin up, and just breathe in, breathe out, like you've mentioned before, to be back in the moment. And
yes,
I have to do it so much now. It's just crazy, but
it's a
love
thing. It's real. And I think that if us three were to ever have a word, and Gia, you already know what I'm gonna say, I genuinely think our word is gonna be duck.
Duck.
Duck. We will do it. So we had a fun thing where we were all on a Google Doc together, and Gia came up as anonymous duck. And for those of you who do not follow me on social media, please do, Lily of the Light, on all social media platforms. The reason is you will get to meet Daryl, the emotional support duck. He is real. He is a stuffy that like travels with me. And when I say travels with me, I had him in his head poking out of a business bag for a business deal. He comes with me everywhere, and I pet his head, And when we were filming, other people would pet his head to calm down because he's blessed to calm people down.
Oh.
And so it will be ducks. We will have ducks. Ducks will be the thing.
Ducks rule.
It will be. Other people have armadillo, but we have ducks. And I mean, yes, we are people.
You know how I brought up the whole grounding and circle being something that keeps you anchored from floating away. If you imagine a circle around yourself that contains your whole energy field, grounding would be a visual line of anchoring from heaven down to earth. And then centering would be the crosshairs of that, where it would be.
Ooh, I love that.
Do you know what I'm saying? So
yes.
If you imagine yourself as, I'm not sure if I'm using the right, maybe crosshairs is kind of not a good way to explain it, but you basically, you're going, when you're looking at the universe and you're working with universal energies, you're going to be grounded from top to bottom. Yep. And then
side to
left
side,
to right. So now you're grounded in the universe, but then you're also then centered. It's like, it is kind of like a crosshairs. And
it is, because they're horizontal lines crossing over that vertical center.
Well, think of the XY axis. And in mathematics, everything exists inside the XY axis. The entire universe can exist inside the grid of the XY axis. And so it's like the crosshairs are the same makeup. They're the same design as that. And so it's through grounding and centering, everything in the universe can exist inside of you. I agree, Maya, completely.
In an equal balance. Yeah.
Yes. Proportions, everything. Yes.
And another thing that I was taught, for people that don't know how to center, I don't know if you touched on that. I was taught that for most people, the easiest way to find your center would be to stand and sway your hips and swing your arms and let yourself loose goose and just keep doing it until you're completely loosey goosey. And then wherever you feel that your balance is your center.
Okay, it's taking everything in me not to stand and do this now because I think it would cause too much rustling on the mic.
I was doing it in my seat.
I want to stand and do it. I want to do it like legit. Move the hips, move the arms. Like, oh my, I'm doing it. I'm doing it, everybody. Now, here's the question for all the listeners. Are you doing it? And if there's a way for you to comment or interact with what's happening, let us know. 1, if you did it. 2, where your center is, where your XY axis, where your crosshairs connect. I would love to know that because I bet you it's different on everybody.
I would love to see videos if anybody's brave enough to post a quick video of it.
I would say that because we carry so much tension on a normal, regular, daily basis, it does take some time to get goosey-loosey enough. So you have to give yourself a little bit of time. It's not going to be immediate. And just keep. You're twisting your torso with your arms down, and you're swaying your hips. And at one point, then, for most people, their center is in their solar plexus or their sacral area. If you're into chakras, it's usually somewhere in there. But if you find exactly where that is, that becomes the really important magic point for drawing energy up through your center and having it come out your projecting arm and blasting. That is going to be your power source.
Mine
I love that.
Is like right towards the end of my sternum.
Yeah, for everybody is different.
And
I love the fact that we have geese and ducks now.
Yes.
I think we're just a very bird-focused group. And I love that. Like, we're loosey-goosey, and we're ducks, and we're anonymous ducks, and we're emotional support ducks, and we are We are your bird people, everyone. Symbols of freedom and all of that happiness. So yeah, like you're right. I'm not going to get loosey goosey. We're pre-recording this episode during Pride weekend. It's the very end of Pride weekend. So like I know my entire body is tight because I walked around at Pride like all day today
Yes.
and stand at a booth. So I know that I won't get loosey goosey to do it like tonight. But I think what was said is really important. We all hold tension in our bodies all the time, and we all hold it in different places. So do this a few times. Get more relaxed when you do it. Like it's a process, it's a journey, it's meant to be experienced, not just like a one and done. So share your experience with us. Absolutely.
And so for your most potent magic, um, for women, the easiest place for them to shoot energy from is their wrists, like Spider-Man.
Yep.
But if you actually find your center and you grow an energy ball there and you keep increasing it, and then you draw a line through where you're focusing like a laser, shooting that energy out of, whether it's your wand or your athame or your two pointer and middle finger, it's going to be very powerful.
Yes.
I just measured, and I found this very interesting. So I have a very strong connection to the number 7. I always have. And so I just used a ruler to measure my where my center is from the top of my belly button, and it is 7 inches, almost exactly
And
above
most people
my
are going
belly
to be
button.
3 to 5, but not everybody's the same. And as you grow in your magic, your center point of energy could change. But if you're new to magic, this is the way you want to go. Like,
I
I
love
know my
that.
power center has changed to my throat chakra, but then it also makes a huge blockage for me at times too. So not only is it my most powerful place, but it's also my most debilitating place too.
Yeah, and I think another thing that should be mentioned is as our bodies change, our center can change.
Yes.
So what I mean by that is as you age, things may change, but also with surgery or trauma or something like that, that can shift. Because I know I've had several surgeries throughout my life, and like it definitely alters the energy in my body and how I handle the power within me, depending upon what kind of surgery it is and what work you did on it, all that, absolutely. But so like we want your power center to be you, but if it changes, you're not broken. That's what I'm trying to say. Like if it never changes,
Right.
that's awesome. If it does change, you're not broken. Honor however that looks to you.
Right, I agree, because I mean, let's take it just a step further from what you were saying. Not only all of those changes, but also as your awareness and your higher levels of consciousness and your ascending happens, that changes things too.
Yes, yes. And there's nothing better or worse. I've met so many people that are like, oh, my powerhouse must be in, my third eye, must be in my intuition, must be, in the middle of my freaking forehead. And no, chances are it's right at your root, like the rest of us were at some point or another. So there's no positive or negative place to have it. And there's no, even when you're ascending, there is no superiority. We need to, and this is slightly off topic, bear with me, everybody. We need to take competition out of our religion, our beliefs, our paganism, our spirituality, that somehow someone is better or worse than somebody else because they have a different experience. I have seen that so many times that someone resonates with an energy center that is perceived to be superior, and it really messes things up. That's out of ego. Just honor everyone's path. I love that Maya has it in the throat chakra. She a bad bitch. I love it. It's amazing. that is not where mine is. You would think it is with all the talking that I do, but I swear it's not. No. But it's honoring ourselves and others on our path, not in a comparison and not in any way thinking something is better or worse, which so many people do. And it's with ascending and raising your vibration, please remember that it's not a competition, because that fucks you more than anybody else on your path.
100%.
So, tangent done.
100%.
So when you ladies were talking further back about helping someone ground with their permission,
Yes.
I'm a strong believer in that as well. If you're doing it in connection with their energies, but there's some good techniques that you can use without getting all up in their energetic field and altering anything. One of them is calling them by name a few times.
Yes.
Just
yes.
calling them by name. Another is some people don't like to be touched, but another is if you place your hand on somebody's shoulders and gently push down. I wouldn't use that as a go-to personally, because you don't know other people's injuries. You don't know if they're open to touch, but that is.
I feel like that one's a really close friend or family member, somebody
Yes.
that you know that's their vibe and that's their technique.
Yep.
Like
Yes.
I have someone that they do really well with like a bear hug. I would not bear hug I hug people, but I would not bear hug someone without like really knowing who they are as a person for me to like do a hard grip around them. So I feel like those are for people who you really know. If you walk up to a stranger and think you can give them a bear hug or put your hand on their shoulder to help, you're not helping.
Right.
So I love those techniques, but those are techniques for people you're familiar with.
I want to add two things to that too, because I have a child who's neurodiverse. Do not, and I stress this, do not force your children into being grounded or centered or anything like that. I'm a big I consent. I think that there's still people on this planet who deem children as less than, and that's wrong. And it's just wrong to do that to a child. So if your child's acting up, having a tantrum, there are other ways to support them that are not forceful, because they deserve consent as well. And that's a big thing for me. I know that, like with my son, I offer to him a hug because hugs tend to help him to ground. But I would never go up to him and grab him and start hugging him, because he might not, with his high functioning autism and everything, that might just set him off more. And it's not right. They deserve to give permission as well. So I just have to stress that out there. Sorry.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that also goes to anyone, because there are adults with autism and ADHD and also PTSD.
Yes.
That it's like, you don't know. And you're like, oh, but this is going to help you. I have had people do that to me at events. They walk up and they're like, I'm here to help you. And I'm like, if you touch me, I will turn into a rabid squirrel.
Yes.
Don't come near me. My energy is mine and I do not consent. And then when people still try, I'm like, you're a bad person. There's nothing you can do to prove to me that you're a good person after you try something like that.
No,
after
exactly.
I say no. And so like whenever we talk about helping people, It is 100% consensual help. These are conversations that we have, and it's not something that we take lightly. And I think with anyone, children, neurodivergent, neurotypical, adult, whatever, energetic consent still matters. Like, it's not just physical consent of like hugging. If I am in an argument with, let's have some wishful thinking and say a lover, and I force my energy on them to ground them, that's bad. If we're in an argument, I don't care if I'm right in the argument. I don't care if he's winning the argument, but really I should win. Keep your energy to yourself, you little hoe. Like, no. Just, this is, you can obviously tell that this is something that we all take very seriously. And one of the main reasons why we take it seriously is because we have seen it done unethically in person. We have had it done to us unethically in person, and it is awful. So if you think you can get away with that, this is not the group for you. Goodbye. But if it's also being able to be validated and seen and heard and go, yes, this is the way it should be. This is absolutely a standard you can have and enforce for yourself, your child. Let me tell you what, I talked to a reader once, and they were like, when an adult brings a child to any kind of event, they're consenting for that child. And I'm like, that adult can't consent for anything, but okay. And then they said, well, so if a kid wanted a reading and they had $10, I would do a reading for them. And I was like, a minor without the adult's permission? And they said, absolutely. The adult consented by simply having the child. No, when they're in labor and pushing, they're not thinking about you. Just throwing that out there. But so, no, I looked at them and I said, if you come near any of my tiny humans, I will flip a table on top of you. And she was like, that's really mean. And I'm like, no. And yet still not even half as bad as what you would do to my kid. So no, you're like, I told him, I'm like, you will never speak to any of my tiny humans. Like, please know that that's a boundary now because I don't trust you. So we take these things very seriously, and we want to honor the people who have these experiences and validate you and let you know that this is a safe space. And also just to give it a voice, because this is something that isn't talked about enough, in my opinion. So yeah, that's our very intense tangent feelings about consent, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, consent is sexy and is needed at all times. I am a big believer in the fries theory. Have you guys ever heard of fries?
No.
All right, here we go. You ready for this shit?
Yes.
All consent, this is my saying, all consent should be served with a side of fries. Fries stands for freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and the real meaning is specific, but I choose the word safe. Whatever it looks like to you.
I love that.
All consent should be served with a side of fries, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Let's all enjoy some fries. So yeah, that is, I promise I'm done with my tangent. That was a bit long. My bad.
I love it though. Also be careful of shorter people and smaller humans' energy areas. So there are cultures that do believe you should never place your hand, even if you're just gently placing your hand on top of a kid's head.
Yeah. Yep.
That is one of their chakras. And just like with anybody else, we wouldn't, like, I personally don't want someone coming up to me and putting their hand on the top of my head.
Oh, God. Just, all right.
Show that same respect to kids, because that is a huge, huge thing. And it, they're so open. They're actually more in tune to everything spiritually than we are. Don't fuck with the head. Leave the kids alone.
Nobody needs a paw on the head anyway. And I like that you included short people. Because when you think about it, short people are treated differently in that way.
Yes.
Like now I wear hats all the time. And someone touched my hat, I'd freak out because I love my hats and they are very nice and pretty. And it's taken me a long time to have them upkept properly. It's a hobby. But like, yeah, people go, oh, and like pat me on the top of the head very patronizingly because I am
Yes.
short. And it's like, no, don't put your grubby little energy mitt on me, on my soul spot.
And it just, I mean, and I'm my, because I have PTSD and my survival reactions always fight.
Mhm.
And when someone goes to touch me, it is literally a reflex of mine to bring my hand, my arm up, getting ready to like swipe them away.
Yeah, there's a karate chop in their future.
Yes, there really is, impossible black eye. So it's, yeah.
So I'd like to get back to some of the other grounding techniques. Another thing that you'll see a lot of if you do group rituals is cakes and ale or potlucks, because food is very grounding.
Oh yeah, baby, that is so. Now use this one with caution, everybody. Don't be that weirdo who's like, so I can eat pasta 7 times a day. That's not what we mean. But yeah, food is. I love. Yes, please, yes. Continue, my darling. Yes.
Mhm. The most not pleasant, if you're on the energy high, like Lily brought up earlier with her yoga example, the most quick, like I gotta go, I have somewhere to go, but effective is putting salt on the tongue. I'm going to say that it's not a pleasant experience if you're high,
Mm-hmm.
but it works.
Yeah.
It's a thing. Carbs are also like, I gave the pasta, potatoes, bread. Like if you don't have to do it in the salt quickness, carbs will ground you right quick.
Chocolate.
Not as quick as salt, but and they might be more pleasant than salt.
Heavy foods, chocolate.
Oh yeah, chocolate.
I'm hungry.
Other things that you can do, what I was saying before about using a person's name, even talking mundane things that smack people down to reality. Sometimes, not fun either, but it does the job, like asking somebody, oh, did you get your homework done? Or, hey, have you paid your rent?
Chores.
Did you take care of your garage door?
Yes,
How-
I think that's yes.
And there are herbal teas, and there's also drops like Rescue Remedy. Our group used to keep that on hand. Like Rescue Remedy was, was very multi-purpose, and it was good for many different things, including animals. They get ungrounded and they get anxious and they pace and stuff too, and Rescue Remedy works for them as well. It's basically a tincture with an eyedropper, and you drop it on your tongue, and it'll help ground and ease anxiety, and amongst many other things if you look it up. Another one that's similar to Rescue Remedy is 5-flower essence.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That was the one I used as a go-to when I could shop at Magus, because I had a very hard time finding Rescue Remedy. But those are some other ways that you can go about helping someone else with their excess energy and grounding.
Yes, so true, so true. I think all of this is really good advice for people. What are our final thoughts about grounding, shielding, and centering for the listeners? What do we all got?
Well, I'm going to put podcast extras on the website that'll have a few grounding mantras, some grounding mudras, if you like to do the hand positionings or like the chantings or anything like that.
I love that. That's awesome. Resources are always great. I would like to say that grounding, centering, shielding, warding are the foundation of a healthy belief and spiritual journey. None of them are more important than the others. Learn all of them, embrace all of them. It's a journey, it's a process. And if you have problems and you need help, please schedule a session. Like, it's I'm here to help and I want to help, and this is stuff that I love. I came from Pride to do this podcast. I have so much faith in Seeking the Light of a Thousand Suns and the message that they give. Like, I can't wait to work with them more about the foundations of spiritual health and everything that it has to do with. So if you need resources, please check out, the podcast extras. If you need help, schedule a session. There's help for you, and we want to help.
And
So
for the
that's my
listener,
final.
yeah, sorry. For the listeners, her website is lilyofthelight.com, and we also have a link on our website that is will take you to hers as well.
Love it. Before we all sign off, I would just like to say, because of the loosey goosey comment, thank you for that. I now think that, I shit you not, this is what I think we should say to center into each other's energy. We should do like a round of duck, duck, goose whenever we want to get centered with each other. That should be our thing. We should have duck, duck, goose, or just something awesomely fun that's just going to make us be very connected. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. This was amazing. Seeking the Light of a Thousand Suns is a podcast that is meant to share knowledge and resources with everyone about anything spiritual or pagan or witchcraft that we can come up with, that we can share with you. And we cannot wait for you guys to tune in. Remember to share this on any platform that you feel drawn to. We want to get the word out. We want to help as many people as possible.
Thank you so much. Blessed be, everyone.
Blessed be.
Lots of love.